I would just encourage you, if you're dealing with something, doesn't matter if it's putting down a pack of cigarettes or, if you have an opioid addiction or a drinking problem or whatever, I'm sure there's some people that know about it, and they're just waiting on you to say something. They'll be there for you. If you feel like you don't have someone in that corner, I guarantee you that there really is.
Welcome to the Man Up Podcast. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney, and today's kind of a bonus episode. Our guest today is Dustin Hall, avid outdoorsman, craftsman by trade, husband, proud father of two amazing little girls. This is going to air right before Father's Day, so I think this whole message is going to be totally appropriate and timely. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Let's start by learning a little bit about Dustin, the husband, the father, the deer hunter, and then share a little bit, maybe a little bit about your journey, kind of how you got started in your field. I say that tongue-in-cheek about avid outdoorsmen, but we have a lot of guys that are listening, and they're definitely hunters, definitely outdoorsmen, whether that's duck, deer, turkey, fishing, whatever the case. Give you a little bit of a proud moment. I know, what the last deer score that's hanging on your wall?
173.
Yeah,
so
for some of you guys that are hunters, you can probably appreciate that. So that's not just a title we threw out there. It's really descriptive of what some of the things, I should say, that Dustin's passionate about.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss without asking you about your daughter's story, because that was probably even a prouder moment. Tell the guys about that real quick.
Yeah, that would definitely trump my deer any day of the week. So they've been hunting with us for probably hard now for 2 years. I would say...
How old are they?
So my oldest right now is 8.5 years old. My youngest is about to turn 7 in a month. So they're getting up to that fun age where they're starting to shoot, and they're getting really good at shooting, which is awesome. So that makes me more proud than anything. But yeah, my deer, we got that one killed on our own property. We ended up moving from Raleigh. This would be me and my wife's third house. Ended up buying 40 acres. We live in a tiny house, so that's pretty interesting.
Well, there's a story in itself.
It sure is. It's great though. No, it's been our favorite house. We've really enjoyed it. We do have some next steps coming in, so maybe the next time I'm on here, we could give some updates on that.
So add some context to that. Like the first house you lived in, how many square foot was it?
Yeah, let's go back. The first house we lived in was built in 1917, 1915 era, somewhere in there. It was a 3-story, had an attached garage. We lived in town, and our backyard had no grass.
A few thousand square feet.
Yes. I think there was 3,000 square feet in that house, or close to. Had 2 living rooms. Yeah, it was wild.
How big's your living room now?
It's our whole house could fit in our first house's living room. So just to put that in perspective for you.
And 3 females, so you're surviving in a pool of estrogen.
For sure.
Wow. Okay, just add a little context for those that are listening. It's hard for me to believe, but
for sure. But yeah, we were able to buy this 40-acre tract, put in a lot of work onto it. Really, you couldn't even drive into the property. So we've done everything from start to finish, got an excavator out there a few times, and we've done our own trails. We've probably got 2.5, 3 miles worth of trails. We have 3 food plots, obviously a decent sized yard with our very small house. But it's beautiful. But I harvested my buck off of that property. And then last season, Savvy was able to take her very first deer. It was about a 6 or 7 year old 8-pointer. Very nice deer. We haven't scored it yet. Still waiting on it to get mounted. Put that one up on the wall for sure. But definitely the one of the most proud moments for one of my hobbies for my kids. So.
She killed that with a crossbow too, didn't she?
She killed it with a crossbow, and it's not one of them new 500 feet per second crossbows. It's one that was actually given to me by by one of my buddies from church. Was having a surgery, and he ended up just blessing me with it. Knew I was a hunter, and called me one morning and gave it to us. We still have it, and she was able to lay that deer down at 45 yards. So
Wow.
yeah, very cool.
Pretty cool memory. So talk to us a little bit about, so obviously you got 2 kids. I'm assuming you're married.
Yes, for sure. We are going on, let's see, be 14 years this upcoming December. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. We'll talk more about that, a little bit later in the show. I'm sure 14 years of survival, you've got some pointers maybe that could help
Yeah.
some of the guys that are here.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about maybe your current career. We've talked about your passion. Obviously, we know a lot of that has to do with the outdoors. Not the only thing. Obviously, your family's super, super important there, I know. But talk to us just a little bit about your current career.
Yeah. So I'm in the production department at a construction company. We work day in and day out with 3 guys on the team. So we see them every day and meet at the shop every morning about the same time. Big old semi driving by, but
That's the beauty of the outdoors.
it is. It's wonderful. Yeah. So we end up working with our sales department. Kind of getting to rotate in and out guys on that team, so that's really neat. Getting to know each and every person's, I guess, quirks, and getting to know more about them and their family life. It's really nice. Yeah,
So you enjoy working with your hands in that field?
I do. Yeah, have been doing that for 7 years now. It's been wonderful so far, and definitely appreciative of our company. So.
What do you think inspired you to get in that field, or maybe when did you know that you really wanted to work with your hands? Because I think for a lot of guys, they may do what their parents thought was the best for their life. They may do what they spent their money in college to do, but they're not really passionate about it.
Yep.
And they kind of go through a series of maybe jobs and careers trying to figure out what that is. How did you know what it was?
Sure. So really for me at the time, I was looking for a career. I had been through 2 other jobs, one for 3-4 years, somewhere in there, and the other one was about the same. Probably, again, 3 or 4 years, and really just come to the realization that that wasn't right for me long term, and that's what I was looking for. So just kind of being a little bit more mature, growing up a little bit. So yeah, I just I found this company, and definitely saw that they were growing rapidly, and I wanted on board. So love building. My grandfather had always been a carpenter. His brothers were farmers. He started his own business, and I was able to help him growing up as a kid. That was one of his favorite stories about that. It was 2 years old. I had a diaper, hammer, and some nails, and me and him went and built our first deck. So definitely some coffee time stories with him. I've heard that story a time or two, and I definitely wish I could have it back. But very cool. So I would say a mixture of that and just wanting to be like him. That just really inspired me to kind of go on this path. So.
That's awesome. If you look back over your childhood, is there a favorite memory that comes to mind?
Oh man, there's a bunch. The outdoorsy side of me, the hunter type of me, would obviously say the first buck that I've killed. That was one I'll never forget. But I would say overall, I believe we were about in 2nd grade, and that's when my parents bought 50 acres. Had a beautiful house on it, tons of trails, food plots, big yard. And we brought it really wasn't real. You're a kid, you don't really appreciate that like you would now. And ironically enough, this still brings back memories to this day. We had our 2nd grade class come out. It was almost like a little field trip, kind of like an end of the year party, so to speak. And that's when that really kind of set in on what I had, just seeing all my friends out there having fun and whatnot. So yeah.
You think that fed into you wanting to have a piece of property of your own?
Oh, for sure.
Later on in life.
For sure. That had always been a goal of mine. So be
That's
able
awesome.
to do our own thing and raise our own deer and have our own fun.
So 14 years, 2 little girls. What's been the favorite trip you and your wife have been able to take?
See, before we had kids, we still travel. We're starting to get back into it. We've done a lot of cruises. It would be hard to narrow that down into one. I would say probably our first cruise, and it wasn't an extravagant ship. It wasn't anything just over the top, mind blowing, anything like that. It was our first one, but we went to Cozumel. It was a very short cruise, but we had a great time. We definitely got lost on that ship a time or two and had to read the maps. But for me, that was our favorite. I know she would say Disney World down in Florida. That's definitely her go-to. That's what she loves. So, yeah.
So how'd you guys meet?
Well, ironically enough, my father-in-law actually kind of sent some pictures to her, and that kind of started it off. I was working down in El Paso, Texas, and she came to visit me with her grandpa, and we ran a lot of leads together. Was doing some project managing down there. There was some big hailstorms, so we just really ended up hitting it off. We talked on Facebook for a minute, and that led to her coming down there to run around with me for a week and help me do the project managing jobs and really just hang out. And really, you could just tell that first week that we just really liked each other, and yeah, that was pretty much it. We got married at a very young age. I'm gonna tell this one. I'd have to go back and do some math, but 19, somewhere in there. So people could call us crazy, but it worked, and we knew, and yeah, here we are.
14 years later.
Yeah.
So you got married young. You're still here. What's one thing looking back now in marriage you could have been better prepared for?
A lot. Definitely a lot. I would say knowing now what I wish I knew then would be to read the books, would be to take the classes, get someone in your corner that has been married for 20 years, for 50 years, for a very long time, and just have dinner with them, a time or two a night. Or not time or two a night, but time or two a week or month or whatever works for their schedule and your schedule. But just really get with them and pick their brain and ask them questions about how they made things work and how they communicate. I think that's one of our biggest things, and as we get farther along on our journey, that's one thing that just keeps coming into my mind and just keeps, I don't know the word for that, but just really becoming urgent almost is how important communication is to women and your wife. And, if not, you're basically just living together, and you really could lose the love there. You could lose the relationship there. I've heard somebody say before, you need to do now what you did when you were dating her to keep her.
So all the guys listening, including myself, have had failure in our life. We're flawed human beings. We're imperfect. We're trying to do life the best we can, and with the help of Jesus, we're a better version now than what we used to be. Talk to us about a significant failure that you experienced in your life, and whatever that is, and the most important lesson you learned from it.
Ooh, it'd be hard to narrow that down to one lesson. The biggest failure is definitely one that comes to mind. Struggled with a drug addiction. Went through some things growing up. Obviously, I got married young and whatnot. But even before that, there was a couple instances that just kind of flipped my life upside down from what I was really expecting. Well, that sounds weird from a 15-year-old, but those things happen every day in this world. Things
They don't
spiral
happen
down.
to us, though.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but life happened, and I didn't handle it in the best way, and um, yeah, it spiraled downhill from there. I got a opioid addiction for several years, and that's a hard habit to break. That gets to the point where you're not just taking them to have a good time with them, I guess, for lack of better words. You're taking them because you can't get out of bed in the morning if you don't have them.
Did that start because there was pain and they were prescribed to you? What was that journey? How'd that start?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely pain there, and there was definitely, I guess I would say, I just went off by myself. I had nobody in my corner, which I did, but I didn't allow it. I had people there for me, but I didn't take advantage of that, and I really should have back then. Um, I definitely think if I would have, I got pulled into the wrong crowd, um, doing worldly things and whatnot, obviously. But um, I think if I would have stuck to the right crowd, number one, and went to those people in my corner, I would have came out of that situation totally different. Looking back on that now, I wouldn't change a thing. Um, I think that's molded me to who I am today. I think it definitely sucks to go through those situations, just to be blunt. Um, the life experiences I got from those, and looking back now, it's something I would obviously never go back to. Um, it was tough, it was tough to pull through, and I had some great people in my corner that helped me get through that. And man, without breaking down and crying and going too deep, just I really appreciate those people. Um, yeah, just really leaned on them.
Was there a was there a point in that process where like there was a wake up call?
Yes. Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to get a bunch of details, but I think there's a lot of guys listening that are dealing with their own struggles. I think
Yeah.
people think, well, dealing with a drug addiction is like, well, it wasn't like you were in a cartel.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
taken prescription medication and you took too much of it and then you get addicted to it. And there's probably several guys dealing with some of the same struggles.
For sure.
And we know it's not just as easy as like, yeah, I'm not going to do that tomorrow anymore.
Yes.
Make that decision by myself. But there also has to be a wake up call that can sometimes force our hand.
Yep.
What was that for you?
Yeah. So really, I almost lost my job. I mean, just to be honest, um, it was at a point where I was so far into it. I've been living this life for so long. I felt like there was no turning back from that. And I wanted that. I wanted out. I didn't want it anymore. But as a man, you feel like you can't go to someone and ask for help. Ultimately, that's what that boiled down to. So,
And why do you think that is? Because I agree that it's a common response. Why do
yeah,
you think that is?
I think we're just men. I think we try to just hide our pain. I feel like we don't want to push our struggles on someone else. Um, I feel like we just try to keep everything inside and hope that it works out.
Mm.
And it won't. Um,
What did it look like after the wake up call? Well, obviously you're free here today. What did
yeah,
that journey look like?
yeah. So took a couple of days off work. Honestly, waited on a phone call to see if I had my job. Um, Ended up having a meeting and worked through all that. Obviously, with some strict stipulations. Very, very grateful. But the process with that, a lot of conversations with my wife and having her by my side to walk me through. Um, yeah.
Sounds like you picked the right one.
Yeah.
So you had somebody walking the journey with you,
Yeah.
who would have been there, as you admitted all along.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as men, you made the common call, like, it's not her burden to carry.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm embarrassed. I don't, I don't want to admit this to somebody. They think I'm one way. I get all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So what next?
So the journey began. With her there, we ended up seeing a doctor and getting some help. The big thing at the time was, just quitting cold turkey wasn't healthy. So was able to see a doctor and have her sit right in there with me. Got us through those hard times. Yeah, man, I'm still tearing up. That's tough. But here we are. We're 3 years down the road, with the help of everybody back in my corner and leaning on those people and just being able to speak with them and tell them the progress I've made, and that's really been the savior for me. It's just having those people in your corner that you can count on and rely on, that 100% just has your back. So
So at this point, you have people in your life that are accountability partners. Would that be accurate?
yes, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Even to the point that they're like, hey, go pee in this cup. And, for me, it's a great feeling to be able to pick that up and sure, here you go.
Yeah.
Have at it. So,
I think for any man that deals with, and every man deals with something, but if it has the allure of sin, everybody's not tempted by the same thing. And once you figure out what that is, yes, it can be embarrassing. It can feel like a weakness. And I think as men, our natural tendency is pull up the bootstraps. We'll deal with this ourselves. We don't reach out. But the opposite really needs to happen. We need to have what you're talking about, people in your corner, accountability partners. Honestly, just people that care about us, that can be real enough that you still like me, you're still in my corner, you still love me even though you know me.
yeah.
When you can pull that off the table and kind of be secure in that, then I think the next thing is, that's where the accountability part comes in, because I think you intentionally begin to set barriers up for, if I'm weak in that moment.
Yep.
I talk to so many people that, say some of the hardest things they've ever quit was they wanted to quit from a nicotine addiction.
Yep.
And they would quit, but they had bought a carton. So, they'd keep the last 4 packs up there because I spent a lot of money on that.
Yep.
And still planned to quit, but in the moment of weakness, because of the ease of access, it was so easy to slip back into that.
For sure.
And I think it's just an example of anything we have in our life. I mean, you could do that about your weight, trying to be healthier so you live longer. I mean, just because you bought the whole box of Twinkies doesn't mean you can't throw them out if that's your weak spot. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So now I think accountability, we need to realize that there's some safeguards that we can put up.
Yep.
There's people that we can call and like, man, I'm glad I made the right decision tonight, but I'm going to be honest, this was tougher tonight, and I don't know why. And you can talk through that. You got somebody that can pray with you, somebody that believes in you. But then I think there's that common sense side too. That needs to be out of my reach. That needs to be out of my life. And it needs to be really difficult for me to go access that.
Yep.
So I have to make multiple decisions to get to the point of doing what I know I don't really want to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you can make it hurt your pocketbook, and you'll have that guilt. You'll have that, exactly what you're talking about. I wish I could quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like, well, I'm going to set these on the counter just for a minute. It's a whole bottle, or it's a whole pack, or it's a whole whatever you're fitting in that box. But when you have that guilt and you have that urge or whatever, that's the time to just do away with it. And I'll say another thing on that is, there's a lot of negativity towards people with addiction, and there's a lot of negativity towards, I guess just, that group of people in general. Um, you hear the things, oh, well, they're hooked on this, or, they're not doing very good. I heard they were hooked on this. And those get in your head, and that becomes hard to reach out and ask somebody because that's what you're worried about them thinking about you. Whenever that happened for me, all that went out the window. People were, that's when people came out of the woodworks for me, so to speak. And I would just encourage you, if you're dealing with something, doesn't matter if it's putting down a pack of cigarettes, or, if you have an opioid addiction or a drinking problem or whatever, I'm sure there's some people that know about it,
Yeah.
and they're just waiting on you to say something. They'll be there for you. If you feel like you don't have someone in that corner, I guarantee you that there really is. So,
Yeah, I think when you know that you truly have friends and family that care for you, the big difference is they don't judge you by one chapter of your life.
sure.
We've all heard the statement, you can judge a book by its cover. I think sometimes we want to judge people. We want to judge other people by their actions, and we want other people to judge us by our intentions.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't always do it right, but I meant well.
Yeah.
I was going to do that. So we're much harder on other people than we are ourselves. And that's when you found true friends. Like, yeah, that's this chapter, but that didn't define the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
We'll work through that. Any advice you'd give to other men, maybe that's struggling with addiction now?
Reach out. Find someone that you're close with, and tell them, say, man, like, I need help. I need an accountability partner. I need to figure out my next steps. I don't know where to go. Wherever you're at in that journey, whether you've looked something up online or, I promise you they'll walk you through it. If they love you, they'll be there for you, and really lean on them. They'll know you need that, and they'll get you through it with motivation by yourself as well. But you have somebody to lean on.
Yeah. And obviously, I think the most important relationship in that is obviously the relationship with Jesus.
Yes.
Literally today, two guys were talking, and one was parroting what he heard somebody else say. This guy had had an addiction in his background, and they were talking about, just the different programs you can get in, which really help a lot of people. But he said, for me, I'm not a recovering addict. I'm a delivered one.
Yep.
I don't struggle with that addiction every day of my life because Jesus delivered me from that.
Yes.
So it's not about managing it. It's about being delivered from it in some ways.
For sure.
And I think that's the difference when your higher power is the creator of the universe. You still need these other relationships in your life, but ultimately on the inside, you're asking for help with something he already wanted to help you with.
For sure.
And it's pretty powerful. What's the most rewarding part of sitting here now on the other side of that, of being free, and also being just a husband and a father? If you connect that together, what's the most rewarding part of that?
As I think about that right now, which obviously I'm not, which is a great feeling, if I was still hooked on them, I would be wondering where I'm going to get my next batch at. Am I going to have the money for it? Not to have, or to be able to do away with that is just a relief in its own. Being stress-free about that. For my wife and kids, I could go several different ways. I think just knowing I'm there for them, and they can have my full attention, and I can be all the way there for them. Ultimately, with no strings attached. There, that's.
I know just personally how passionate you are about being a good dad. What would you say to those that are struggling and maybe they're feeling inadequate in their role as a father for whatever reason? Maybe they didn't have a good example. Maybe they didn't have a dad. Why really doesn't matter. The fact they're struggling. What would you speak into that and say to them? Tips or encouragement?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's got to come within, and that's got to come not just from yourself, but a greater power. I feel like you need, number one, you need Jesus. But number two, I feel like it's really a tough one to answer and put into words. Personally, I think back to times, growing up, I had a good childhood. I think back to the things that I got to do with my parents. I think, my grandparents were always there. They were at baseball games, and so I see all that, and I want to obviously make sure that I do that for my kids, and that I'm there for them. As far as, I guess, struggling with that, I would just think, obviously raising better humans. I didn't have kids just because I wanted to have kids. I didn't have kids just because I thought it'd be easy. We knew it would be hard. And I think you kind of have to put that in the back of your memory bank, and the next time they ask you, oh, hey, you want to go do this with me, or do you want to go do that with me? It's not just, oh, I would, but I have this going on, or I want to put myself above you. It's really just being humble, being selfless, and doing all you can for them.
Any advice you'd give to men out there that maybe have a strained relationship with their father? That's pretty common. And I think sometimes it can become an excuse not to be a good father ourselves.
Yeah, it can be. I would say you definitely have to learn how to forgive. But not only that, you have to work through it. You have to work through issues. You have to be willing to talk. And if you can't figure that out, you're not going to make it anywhere. Me and my dad, we've had definite arguments. We've had disagreements. I mean, he's my dad. Even since we've been older, we've had arguments and disagreements. But we were just over there. I believe it was Saturday, or I think it was sometime this week, and just being able to work through that stuff. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to forgive and move on. You can't necessarily forget, but you have to truly just be able to, put that on God's hands and just forgive. Yeah.
Any advice for someone starting out as a new father or husband?
Trying to think of something different. Everybody would always say just be there. But besides that, I would say, you really need to get to know them, not just being there for them. It's one thing I'm trying to work on and be better at. I have one daughter that it's very easy to be there for her. I have another daughter that you really have to work hard to be there for her, because she can go play by herself for 4, 5, 6 hours, and she's content. She's fine. And in order to have that good relationship with her and to know her, you have to kind of, I guess dig at that. You kind of have to just really pay more attention to her because she's not going to tell you what she likes. You got to figure that out.
Have to adjust to her.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great way to word that. Yeah, adjust to them. So my oldest, it's simple. You know, as long as you're around, as long as you're having fun, that's what she wants. Which my youngest loves to have fun. Don't get me wrong. She's wild. She's fun. She's just as fun as Savvy. But it's harder to kind of pull that out of her. You know, Savvy likes to talk. She likes to be the center of attention. Ellie not so much. So I would say just learn them. You know, and obviously when they're babies, that's hard to do. But when they get 2, you can start telling whether they want to be around people, whether they don't want to be around people. And those are some telltale signs. So.
Easier questions. Favorite part of your morning routine?
Waiting for this one. You know I'm a morning person.
Hitting the snooze button.
Actually, you know, I've gotten out of that habit. I hit it. We had a company event this week, and I actually hit it one time. I made it 5 minutes and got right up out of bed. So I didn't sleep through the full snooze.
That's awesome.
So
Progress.
I've been doing better in the mornings. You asked my wife about that. She might tell you something different, but
There's progress.
it's progress. It's
awesome.
Waking up earlier and having coffee, I would say, is probably my thing. Just I've actually been waking up earlier than my wife. If you know my wife, you know that's
Wow.
that's big. Yeah. But just having 30 minutes to myself in the morning, just kind of rub my eyes a little bit and shake the crabbiness off of me, and I'm good. So.
Favorite way to unwind at the end of the day?
Oh man, we live on 40 acres. We've got a fun side by side to go ride on, and plenty of property, and it'd be hard to narrow that one down. I will say this, I still stick by this. My favorite thing at the end of the day is pulling into my driveway. We've got Life 360 on our phones. If you don't have that, I highly recommend that, not just for, you know,
Accountability.
Yeah, that. But safety, you know, that's definitely helped a few people out that I know that maybe lost their phones, been pinned in a vehicle in an accident, and first responders get called. But anyways, so my kids track that when they see it's around time for me to get home, and they meet me at the end of the driveway, jump on my truck and cruise in. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That'll be a memory they never forget, and you won't either, I'm sure. What's it mean to man up to Dustin?
That's a good one. You know, everybody always thinks when you hear a man, you think of just, like you said earlier, pulling your boots on and getting to work. And as I get older, it's just the opposite of that. It's being more humble. It's being selfless. Really listening. That's something I've definitely been working on with my wife. You know, I'm not perfect in any of these things, obviously. It's kind of why we're chatting about it. I always want to be better. So, but yeah, I definitely want to be a family man and love my kids and love my wife and love Jesus ultimately. So,
How do you want to be remembered when this life's over?
This one's another tear up moment. I'm fighting it already. Man. I would say kind of just like my last statement, just being that family man. Just being able to, you know, number one, provide for them and make sure that they're well taken care of. But then if someone ever did need my help, that they could call me, and you know, if it was at my funeral, that they would have a story or two that's fun to tell. And yeah, I would say ultimately the family man. Mine's pretty simple. I want to make sure that they have everything that they need, and that people can see that, and just be an inspiration to those that you know might be struggling in that area or whatnot. So
Pass it on to the next generation.
Yep.
And I appreciate you sharing your story. I know that parts of that wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I think your authenticity and just being real about that, that's going to inspire some guys that are listening. I think you spoke right to a lot of men tonight. And I encourage you, if you're listening, there's some common themes that Dustin kept going over. And we talk a lot, experience is what you get from making your own mistakes. Wisdom, though, is learning from the mistakes of others. So when you have somebody that's willing to pull the curtain back and say, man, I screwed up, and here's why I screwed up, but here's how I fixed it. And you heard all that tonight. And so there should be some hope and inspiration if you're listening to this on, you don't have to stay where you're at. And your current failure doesn't define your future. And this was one chapter. Yesterday ended last night. And there's hope for you. And go find an accountability partner. Really go find somebody that's in your corner. If you find somebody that's in your corner, they'll help keep you accountable just because they love you, man. And you need to find those people. And quite honestly, if you got people in your life you can't tell that and they're going to judge you, they don't need to be in your corner anyway. You're better off just getting them out of your life because they're probably going to pull you down rather than pull you up. And I appreciate your honesty, appreciate you taking the time. Guys, remember, legacy is not so much what you leave to people. It's a whole lot more about what you leave in people. Go out there and make a mark. Can't be erased this week. We'll see you next time on the Man Up Podcast.
Hey, Terry Gwaltney here from the Man Up Podcast. Listen, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you supporting the podcast, listening to it. We hope it's adding a ton of value to your life. Also want to ask you to do us a favor. If you could like and share this podcast on wherever you consume your social media content, whether that be YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, we would appreciate it. It just helps us get the word out so we can help more people. And maybe you've never experienced the Man Up Adventure Camp that we do in October. You can check out our Facebook or our website, manup-camp.com. Once again, I want to thank you for listening to the Man Up Podcast, and we'll see you soon.